How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I'm going to go and test out. There's two new mods I've added. This one's called The Watcher by Zidon, I believe it's pronounced, and then yeah, there's also another one called Fred's Buggy, so we'll get to that one afterwards. This one, yeah, first one up. It looks pretty cool as far as like a 4x4 goes. It's got quite nice suspension options. Tyres are pretty decently sized on it. It can have all the normal Scout trailers. So yeah, it's got some good things going for it. I think the main issue with it, for me, everything is a little bit skiddy in this section here, so I'm not really counting it there. You can see it gets a little bit sort of squirrely, but it's just the tyres don't seem to have a hell of a lot of grip. It doesn't feel very planted to the actual terrain you're driving on. So, yeah, it sort of feels like there's a bit of a disconnect between, you know, your steering and all the rest of it. It just doesn't really seem like it's all being applied as well as it could be. Yeah, as far as the tyres go though, they're 50-inch tyres, which are pretty nice that they're that size on this sort of truck. The suspension as well, the other thing I did like, you can get, there was various different levels of suspension. I think the last one was called Extreme or something, which does raise it pretty damn high. Nice thing though, is you can actually go back to a bit more of a normal suspension. I think I went down to the suspension, it sits pretty low, but I think it was like the stiffened suspension. You can see there as well when I was driving along, I was in high and it was kind of ticking along, but then at the last second it just kind of randomly applied a load of power, did a bit of a wheelie and flipped. Yeah, so it's a bit erratic in that sense. Looks pretty cool when the suspension is damaged. But yeah, that's what I was saying with the suspension though. I just at least like that you don't have to go for the tallest suspension in order to have the biggest wheels. And I was sort of surprised as well with the wheels when I was driving them through mud and a few other sections that I thought they would have done a little bit better, because these are the chained muds that you get like on the Dolphin, or like loads of the good stuff that's usually in the base game at least. That's the tyres that were my go-to. Yeah, again you can see that wasn't even a full blip of the throttle. That was like a half squeeze, if that, in high. And yeah, every now and then it just really blips the throttle in like a mad one, and kind of goes a bit crazy. So I started going for a drive along here, see how well it does at rock climbing then. And it's not too bad, but it's still a bit slippery on the rocks. But I have to say, it actually does climb pretty decently. Like, a lot of stuff wheel spins like mad on the rocks and can barely move. Not too keen on the whole diff lock thing. That's not this thing's personally, I just think with the game, they're well too over the top on when it starts bringing up, like the axles start going red and it tells you to disengage the diffs. It's always been a little bit keen with that, and yeah, slipped into that hole, that's what she said, and yeah, started tipping over, so the weight is a little bit, it'd be, like, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of weight low down at all. Like, let's say for example, the wheels have probably got the equivalent of no weight to them, so it's all kind of in the actual chassis and everything. You can see here as well, cutting across the snow, I mean, it's just so slow there, it doesn't even feel realistic. You wouldn't expect a truck like this with that size tyres, chained on in particular, yeah, to be going through, what, 6 to 10 inches of snow, and it can barely move faster than 1 mile an hour. And that section there is a bit trollish, I'll admit. There's definitely, it slows quite a few vehicles down, more than you would expect, but still, I just think, yeah, you'd sort of, from the look of this vehicle, you would hope for a bit more of a normal speed going through there. Going down the runway, didn't get a whole lot of speed. I don't think I've got the top range gearbox in though at the minute, but it's not the fastest thing. It seemed a little bit better down here until I got all wiggly and flipped. But on the actual rocks and that, like the sort of seabed and everything, there's little boulders there, but I think there's like a little bit of kind of mud terrain going on as well. Yeah, it gripped a little bit better down there. As for going up here again though, it's I'm in auto. High range it just wheel span even more. Low range, obviously you're going about this speed anyway. It is kind of like not really wheel spinning at that point, it's just kind of driving along, but yeah, you don't really get any speed gain from it. And again, I'm not asking or expecting it to go absolutely hurtling up this hill at 100 mile an hour or anything, but I suppose about as fast as it was going now would be quite nice. And like I said, it's got a roof rack thing on it. I don't even know, it says it's a roof rack, but you don't see it appear anywhere on the truck. Whether you've got it equipped or not, it's just like all the same stuff's on there. But there's 200 points to it, which is pretty nice. I mean, it's not Not quite up to life standards, but as Einstein once said, if you compare a fish by its ability to ride a bicycle, the whole world would seem stupid, or something like that. And likewise, if you compare anything by its ability to match a loaf, then everything will seem highly inadequate. And yeah, I got to the top of this hill. I flew down the other side, nothing really too special there. Driving back up here though, again, there's just not... I don't necessarily know if the truck itself has got like the weight of a crisp packet like some of them have. It's just, I don't know, maybe there's like, maybe weight in the wheels actually helps the wheels more planted. Whereas yeah, as you can see, I mean, it's struggling, it's skidding around a bit. I was trying to drive in these little snowy sections because you get a little bit more grip there. But can you see it's like, and I know the rocks are a little bit like this, but it almost looks like it's not really touching the actual rocks. It's, yeah, it just doesn't feel like it's planted into the ground. So in the end I just, yeah, gave up. Purposely roll backwards and turn sideways. Give it a little roll. So that's the main thing I would say, really, is its grip just feels like it's not enough for what the truck is. And yeah, as far as scouts go, I mean, it can have the scout trailers, so that's fair enough. But they can't really do a hell of a lot compared to the trucks anyway. Obviously they've got all like sideboard beds and all sorts, but so the least you'd expect or hope is that it's a pretty competent like off-roader, yeah, hill climber, rock climber, all that sort of thing. Got up there in the end. It seems it slipped off the first time though. I did actually have 3 attempts at getting up there. The first 2 rolled in that, but yeah, third one made it. So I was just kind of, I wasn't too keen on making this video because it was a bit like, I've tested them, I was a bit, nah. Again, I'm not saying they're horrible mods or anything like that, not at all. I just think it's a good start, but they're just a few little characteristics need some tweaks. This thing personally, I think, yeah, would benefit mainly from preferably some weighted tyres, but also, if needs be, just essentially dial the grip numbers up. Again, doesn't have to be insane, but just to the point where it actually, yeah, sort of makes sense with the look of what you'd expect from a vehicle like this. Because really, I mean, it's like a custom-built off-road vehicle, even though it sort of looks like a pickup. It's practically just like a metal frame chassis underneath, and it's just got the sort of bodywork of a pickup put over it. So, yeah, you'd expect it to be a bit of a monster when it comes to off-road climbing and all the rest of it. It's a little bit like Frog's Crawler in the sense of, like, it's just a pure frame of, like, yeah, scaffolding all welded together. A bit like this thing, really, but this thing hasn't got the, yeah, any bodywork to it, which I think is pretty funny, to be honest. I quite like the look of this. I think it's pretty funny that they've kind of made it the shape of a car, just in scaffolding and everything. This one, the grip and everything seems to be a little bit more realistic. That wasn't too good though. Yeah, the main issue with this one more is its weight is a bit odd. It's again, when you're going along now, it feels like there's, say, relatively enough weight on the vehicle itself, but that's sort of the only way I could describe it. You can see where the driver's sat. If you imagine just behind him, if there's like some big solid block of heavy weight that has just been placed there, like you'll see a little bit later on as I sort of do a few things to demonstrate the whatever's going on with the weight. So it's like there's not really a hell of a lot of weight anywhere else in the vehicle, just kind of like a big cube slab of it sat sort of roughly to the back of the vehicle a bit, and yeah, it can make it a bit weird. It's not too bad when you're on like relatively flat surfaces like this. When you're trying to climb steep hills and all sorts, it gets a little bit odd and sort of it really wants to flip and end up on its roof. Cutting through that mud, not too bad. I mean, I suppose I sort of wouldn't expect complete miracles from it. I mean, stuff like the Dolphin can cut through that mud in a high gear. And you'll see now as well, it does one of those things again though, where it just suddenly blips a load of throttle speed in. That little freeze frame thing there actually happened when I was playing. That wasn't just this thing glitching. The other issue though, which is why I was just waiting for this bit, is it's got winch points at the front and the back's even got 4, so it's got 2 in the corners, which is nice, but it's got no middle winch point. So long story short, it doesn't matter whether I winch from the back or the front, it's just going to rotate my vehicle round like that, or it'll twist it around to the front, and yeah, flipping it back to its wheels is, well, yeah, it just doesn't really work. You may as well just abort mission, recover to the garage, which then in that sense, it's one of them where it's like, if you flip, you're basically done for, because I didn't manage to find any angles or situations where I was able to get back to my wheels. It would just do basically what I've just showed you, like you'd winch it to a tree, you had to winch from the front or the back, and then it just kind of twist you around on your roof and drag you forwards or backwards towards whatever it is you're winching to. Off-roading, it does do a little, it feels a bit more realistic, I'd say, about where I'd expect it. Like I say, I'm not expecting miracles or anything. Again, it's slightly in the realm of like Frog's Crawler, not in terms of handling and all that. I don't mean that with either vehicle, I just mean like the general setup. Yeah, it's a load of sort of scaffold pipes all welded together with a big fat engine stuck in the middle. There's no point in even trying to ram trees, neither of them will be knocking any trees out, unless you get like a bit of a lucky hit, but it might cost you everything when you roll. Yeah, I wanted to bring it along here though, just to kind of do a little rock climbing comparison. And this sort of shows you though where that other vehicle, the Watcher, was actually pretty good at climbing up here. As far as that goes, it had enough grip. This thing can't even get its wheel up that last little bump really, and even when it does, I'm just slipping off now to the right. And when we get down here, even though it's a fairly smooth transition from the mud to the rock, there's not much of a ledge, but it still managed to catch that again though. Like I said, because the weight feels like it's at the back, the front wheels didn't really have an issue bumping up onto the rock. It was, yeah, like the back is just fully planted down and it didn't have enough grip to overpower that weight. Cutting across this snow, again, a little bit better, certainly quicker than that Watcher. That Watcher was so slow, I cut across here 4 or 5 times when I was like going up the mountain and down the runway and stuff. Yeah, it was like very, very slow. Sort of as slow as a lot of the Scouts are through there. The other peculiar thing I'd say with this, it has a habit of when you're going through the gears, particularly when you're on a bit of off-roading, it sort of, you can hear it's very clunky with the gears, and as you sometimes jump up to 2nd or 3rd gear, it'll just suddenly, like, you'll hear a clunk noise and it'll practically stop you dead, and then goes back to 1st, and it's, yeah, again, very clunky and not smooth about how it does it. Every now and then, just that sheer clunk and immediate stop caused me to start stalling in high range. You can see now, I've tried to do the Jeff Special, again, just messing around, but as a good example of, see how it flipped and it immediately wants to sit like it did on the back, as if, yeah, there's a heavy block of weight. Again, I was trying to climb this mountain, got to there and it flipped, and then it pretty much does the same thing again. And like I said, imagine an invisible, extremely heavy block of gold kind of behind and above the driver's head that's just causing, once that's gone over the centre of gravity, it's pulling me that way and there's not really a lot I could do about it. Flinging a winch out, again, because it grabbed either the front or the back, it didn't quite stabilise me. While I was messing around, I wanted to kind of see what the situation was. You know, like, is the vehicle actually drawn the way we can see it, or is there like invisible things in the way and all sorts? There kind of was at the back. It wouldn't really sit flush, but as you can see, the loaf fell through the front of the scaffolding, and the vehicle, it's a bit odd. It's kind of like it's got the driver's compartment, all that feels like it's solid, but the front you can drive like I did there through the P12. That in and of itself, it's not the end of the world. I don't really mind that. If it was just some inconsequential bug, then yeah, that's not really going to bother me. But this was what I was to demonstrate. You see how, I'll do it again, because apologies, the camera gets a bit funny there, but as soon as my wheels start going up, I go into low range to do it this time. When I get to about there, it's already tipping me back, and then it violently slams down on its roof. Like, that's the heavy part that seriously wants to return to Earth as quick as it can. And then, yeah, one last bit of messing around. Apologies, there's a tiny little glitch there, but I was climbing up these sticks and logs and that just to see. It was not too bad, it couldn't quite get its nose up here. With one thing that was potentially handy, how the front kind of glitches through a lot of things, is then you don't catch your bumper on stuff. It automatically allows the front tyres to get onto somewhere, and I was able to get my front wheels up onto the logs. But as you can see, got to about this sort of steepness, and it almost wants to start tipping back already. It's close to being where it's going to like wheelie and flip back onto its roof. And yeah, driving up here, it's just not having it. I slipped back down, and again, that invisible weight carried me over and tipped me. So, I mean, that's about it for them. I just, in the end, because I wanted to see for my own peace of mind, I stuck the loaf, got in the Azov iceberg. I mean, you can just see how this feels like it's actually connected to the floor. Again, this has got the weighted wheels, which help not only keep the weight low, but kind of spread out into the corners as well. And yeah, this feels like very connected to the terrain, and as you're driving along, it feels pretty realistic, pretty responsive, pretty kind of sane in the kind of things that it does. And then I just came for a little drive on the logs, and I appreciate this is obviously bigger than those last two, but the Watcher has pretty big tyres for what it is. But yeah, you see how just again it's planted enough even into these logs that it can apply the grip and climb up over them. Whereas those, yeah, the Watcher and that Fred's Buggy is just a little bit erratic. And again, I mean, I'm not knocking them. I'm certain they're a better attempt than anything I could certainly do. I just think there's a few little tweaks and things that need to be done. So I suppose the main thing for the Watcher would be better tyres with better grip, preferably a bit more weight in the tyres. As for that Fred's Buggy, probably just whatever that invisible cube of weight is, just, yeah, add it to the tyres, for example, because I think that just helps plant them into the terrain. So, yeah, that's about it for today. Like I said, it's a bit of a downer one. But, yeah, they're a good start, but we'll see. They're just not quite for me. Anyway, that's about it for today, though. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching. Thanks to my Patreon members, and I'll be back soon.